For weeks, something ugly was happening on the court, and nobody wanted to talk about it. Caitlin Clark was being targeted, hard hits that seemed designed to send a message, contested fouls that went unchecked, physical play that crossed invisible lines. Every game, it happened again. Everyone watching could feel the tension building. The cameras caught it. The fans saw it. But the WNBA said nothing. The league remained silent. Analysts looked away or danced around it with careful words that meant nothing. It was a strange kind of quiet, the kind that only happens when an institution doesn't want to admit what's actually happening in front of millions of viewers. That silence created a vacuum, and vacuums don't stay empty in the sports world. When NBA All-Stars started breaking that quiet, it wasn't small talk. It wasn't obligatory praise or the kind of generic compliments celebrities exchange at award shows. It was something entirely different. It was protection. It was validation. It was one of the biggest players in basketball stepping up and saying, "I see what's happening. I'm not okay with it." What followed was a moment that revealed something crucial about the state of basketball and about Caitlin Clark herself. The NBA's biggest names didn't just compliment her as a player. They acknowledged her as competition, as a peer, as someone forcing the entire sport to reckon with its own future. Some spoke with genuine admiration. Others spoke with protective anger. A few chose silence instead, and that silence said something too. But here's what's important. When you have LeBron James, Steph Curry, Tyrese Haliburton, and multiple other all-stars all weighing in on the same player, all defending her publicly, all refusing to accept the narrative that she's just a college sensation or a temporary story, something real is happening. You don't get that kind of unified response from competitive athletes unless they genuinely believe something significant is taking place. This wasn't about charity or making the right political statement. These are men who have spent their entire lives studying basketball, understanding excellence, recognizing when someone has truly arrived. And they were saying, collectively and individually, that Caitlin Clark had. But not everyone agreed. Some of the league's biggest names chose a different path. They chose to either ignore her existence or actively diminish her presence. And those choices matter just as much as the praise. What you're about to hear are the unfiltered reactions from NBA All-Stars when they were asked about Caitlin Clark. Some of these statements will surprise you. Others will reveal divisions you didn't know existed. But all of them tell you something essential about where basketball is headed and what Caitlin Clark means to the sport right now. Pascal Siakam was asked a question that seemed designed to elicit the safest possible answer. Which player right now receives the most love and admiration? It's the kind of question where you can name anyone. You can go international, you can stay domestic, you can pick a teammate, a rival, a legend. The possibilities are endless, and most athletes use that to their advantage. They pick someone safe, someone established, someone whose name won't spark controversy or unexpected conversations. Siakam is the type of player who understands optics. He's a veteran. He's been through championship runs and media scrutiny. He knows how to navigate the landscape of professional basketball where every word gets scrutinized, replayed, and analyzed. So when he was asked this question, everyone expected a measured response. Maybe he'd name a fellow NBA All-Star. Maybe he'd pick someone internationally recognized. Maybe he'd give a nod to a player from his own team. Something calculated, something safe. But Pascal Siakam didn't play it safe. His answer came quickly, without hesitation, without any of the verbal hedging that usually accompanies unexpected statements. Caitlin Clark, not as an afterthought, not buried in a longer answer where he'd also mention other names, just her name, direct, immediate. And then he explained himself, but not in the way you'd expect. He didn't say she was an amazing women's basketball player. He didn't limit his comparison to the WNBA. Instead, he compared her to NBA point guards. Specifically, he referenced Tyrese Haliburton, one of the league's most exciting young talents. He said Caitlin was receiving more love than Haliburton, more love than established.
That I love that she's bringing to her sport, more people want to watch. More people want to tune in. I saw for the first time that they had a chartered plane for the first time in their league history. You know, they flew private. That should be celebrated in its own right.
NBA All-Stars. He positioned her above players in his own league in terms of fan affection and cultural impact. This wasn't just admiration. This was acknowledgement. This was a reality check for anyone still operating under the assumption that the WNBA and NBA existed in separate universes. According to Pascal Siakam, they didn't anymore, not when it came to Caitlin Clark. She'd crossed an invisible barrier that nobody really expected her to breach, at least not this quickly, not with this clarity. What made this statement powerful wasn't just what he said. It was that he didn't have to say it. Pascal Siakam could have given the safe answer. He could have named another player. He could have avoided the entire conversation about comparing leagues and players, but he chose to speak his truth. He volunteered information that could be controversial. He put his own credibility behind the idea that Caitlin Clark was operating at a level that transcended traditional boundaries in basketball. The significance here is subtle but profound. When an NBA All-Star voluntarily places a college player's name in the same conversational space as NBA talent, when he compares her fan affection to established NBA stars, when he does this without being prompted specifically about her, something has shifted. The narrative has changed. The barriers have become more permeable. And Pascal Siakam, a guy who didn't have to say anything, decided that the truth was more important than staying quiet. Obi Toppin doesn't typically give long monologues. He's not known for dramatic soundbites or carefully crafted quotes that blow up on social media. He's a player who speaks when he has something to say, and he doesn't usually elaborate beyond what's necessary. His communication style is functional. It's genuine without being theatrical. And that's exactly what made his comments about Caitlin Clark stand out so profoundly from everything else being said around the league at that time. When Obi was asked about Caitlin, his tone shifted in a way that was almost imperceptible to casual listeners, but absolutely obvious to anyone paying close attention. He wasn't performing. He wasn't hitting the talking points. He was simply expressing genuine respect for another basketball player, and that authenticity made it more powerful than any pre-written PR statement could ever be. He talked about watching her courtside at games. He mentioned the excitement that she brings to the sport. He acknowledged the joy that's visible in her play, the way she approaches the game with enthusiasm and energy that's infectious. But then he said something that reframed the entire conversation. He said that when NBA players are competing, they feel the same thing. They experience the same joy. They approach their work with the same kind of enthusiasm and passion that Caitlin brings to her games. This was Obi drawing a line of equality. Not saying Caitlin Clark was trying to be like NBA players or aspire to their level. He was saying she was already there. She was already operating at that frequency. The joy she brought was the same joy that competitive athletes at the highest level of basketball experience. It was a direct statement about parity, and that parity was real. What made this remarkable was how understated it was. Obi didn't need to make grand proclamations. He didn't need to get emotional or dramatic. He simply stated a fact as he saw it. This player is doing what we do. She's at this level. And by the way, it's beautiful to watch. It's a joy to experience. There's no condescension in that assessment. There's no soft language trying to make a woman's accomplishment seem impressive by women's standards. It's a straightforward acknowledgement of excellence. The broader point here is that Obi Toppin represents something important in how the basketball community was starting to respond to Caitlin Clark. There was no need for elaborate explanations or defensive statements. The respect was just there. It was normal. It was the way you'd talk about any elite player in the sport. And that normalization of her excellence, that casual acceptance that she belonged in conversations about the best players in basketball, was perhaps more meaningful than any grandiose praise could have been. Because here's the thing about authenticity in sports: it can't be faked. Players know when someone is being genuine and when they're performing for the media. And Obi Toppin's quiet, understated respect for Caitlin Clark came across as completely genuine. He wasn't trying to say the right thing for PR purposes. He was simply acknowledging what he'd seen as someone who understands basketball at the highest levels. Tyrese Haliburton had an advantage that most NBA players didn't have when it came to commenting on Caitlin Clark. He actually knew her. They lived in the same city. He'd spent time around her. He'd had conversations with her beyond what was public. He'd observed her not just as a player, but as a person navigating an unprecedented situation. And that proximity gave his words a weight and credibility that purely observational comments couldn't match. When Haliburton was asked about Caitlin Clark, he didn't start with the standard praise framework. He didn't lead with stats or highlight plays. He led with the personal observation. He talked about getting to spend time around her, about knowing her personally, about having the chance to understand who she is beyond what the cameras see. That foundation, that human connection, informed everything he said after that. He called her an amazing person and an amazing player, but he didn't stop there. He acknowledged something that most other players weren't directly addressing. She deals with a lot. There's a lot of rhetoric around her that she has no control over. And the way she handles that, the way she navigates constant criticism, media scrutiny, physical targeting, and societal expectations is what impressed him most. That's not a statement about her basketball talent. That's a statement about her character under pressure. But Haliburton wasn't done. He made a claim that echoed what Pascal Siakam had said, but with even more specificity. He stated that when it comes to fame in basketball, Caitlin Clark is probably in the top 5 most famous people playing right now. And he specified, that includes his own league, not top 5 women's players, not top 5 college players. Top 5 basketball players, period, globally, across all professional and college leagues. This wasn't hyperbole. Haliburton had clearly thought about this. He'd done the mental math. He'd considered the numbers, the viewership, the social media presence, the cultural impact. And he'd arrived at a conclusion that was both factual and significant. Caitlin Clark's fame transcended traditional boundaries in a way that very few athletes ever achieve. What made Haliburton's statement particularly important was the empathy layer he added. He wasn't just ranking her by fame or talent. He was acknowledging the burden that comes with that level of attention. He was saying, I see what you're carrying, I understand the weight of it, and I think the way you're handling it is extraordinary. That kind of validation, that kind of recognition that she's not just talented but also resilient, matters in ways that pure praise doesn't. There's also something worth noting about the tone of his statement. Haliburton spoke with the confidence of someone who'd actually observed what he was talking about. He wasn't speculating. He wasn't offering a polite opinion. He was reporting what he'd witnessed. He'd watched her games. He'd seen the hits she absorbed. He'd heard the criticism. He'd observed her response. And his conclusion, based on actual experience and proximity, was that she was handling an unprecedented situation with grace and excellence. This is the kind of endorsement that carries serious weight in professional basketball. When a fellow NBA all-star with direct knowledge of the situation speaks positively about a player's character and ability, it's not just a nice quote. It's a validation that extends far beyond the basketball court. When LeBron James speaks about basketball, the entire league listens. It's not just because he's one of the greatest players of all time. It's because every word he says gets examined. Every pause gets analyzed. Every implication gets unpacked by analysts, commentators, and fans around the world. He carries that weight consciously. He understands the platform. And when LeBron chooses to comment on something, it's rarely accidental. His remarks about Caitlin Clark weren't just supportive. They were structural. They were about validating a shift that was happening in basketball itself, not just validating a single player. LeBron didn't talk about her shooting mechanics or her court vision. He talked about what she was bringing to her sport: more eyes, more investment, more growth, more people wanting to watch, more people wanting to tune in. But then he went deeper. He mentioned something specific: the chartered plane. The WNBA's first chartered flight in league history. He said it should be celebrated, and he understood why it mattered in ways that casual observers might miss. LeBron has lived the experience of being the reason your league evolves. He understands what it means to be the catalyst for institutional change. He knows the pressure. He knows the expectations. And he knows that the benefits of that evolution are real and transformative. What LeBron was actually doing in his statement was drawing a line of connection between himself and Caitlin Clark. He was saying, I recognize something of my own experience in what you're doing. He'd been the young, transformative player whose presence elevated everything around him. He'd been the reason people tuned in. He'd been the force that pushed leagues to invest more, spend more, take bigger risks. And he was seeing that same dynamic playing out with Caitlin. This wasn't just admiration. This was recognition. This was an elder statesman saying, you've arrived at a level that I understand intimately. And I'm here to tell you that what you're doing matters. It's not just hype. It's not just temporary attention. This is the beginning of something real, something that will change the landscape of professional basketball. LeBron also addressed something that had been happening throughout Caitlin's season: the media scrutiny. He talked about people looking for her to say anything so they could twist it, splice it, and turn it negative. He was acknowledging the unfairness of the microscope she was under. But instead of that being a criticism of her, he framed it as the price of her impact. When you're changing the game, people pay attention. That attention can be brutal, but it's also a sign that you matter. What made LeBron's statement particularly significant was the respect layer. This wasn't a veteran making excuses for a young player. This wasn't someone being patronizing. This was one player who'd operated at the absolute highest level of basketball for 2 decades, looking at another player and saying, "You're doing what only a rare few can do. You're not just talented. You're transformative." LeBron's support also carried practical implications. When the face of basketball for the last 20 years publicly validates another player, it changes how the rest of the league treats that player. It changes the narrative. It gives permission to other players to speak up. And it suggests that this isn't a temporary moment, but something that's going to have lasting impact. Trae Young has never been shy about basketball. He speaks his mind. He's confident. He plays with swagger and flair. He doesn't hedge his bets or play it safe when he's talking about the game he loves. So when Trae was asked about Caitlin Clark, the expectation was that he'd say something bold and straightforward. He didn't disappoint, but the way he delivered his thoughts added layers of meaning that went beyond simple praise. Trae acknowledged something that only he and Caitlin Clark share. They're the only 2 players in NCAA history to lead their college in both points and assists in a single season. That's not a fun fact. That's aristocracy in basketball. That's a distinction that separates the exceptional from the merely excellent. By bringing this up, Trae was placing Caitlin in an exclusive category. He was saying, "You're in a club with me. You're at that level." But what made it more meaningful was what came next. When asked if he'd do a 3-point contest with her at the All-Star game, Trae didn't laugh it off. He didn't give a diplomatic answer. He said yes. And then he added something crucial. He'd have to practice more than he had for previous 3-point competitions. That's not cockiness. That's respect. That's one elite shooter looking at another elite shooter and saying, "You're real, I'd have to take this seriously." There's a specific kind of deference embedded in that statement. Trae Young is one of the best shooters in the NBA. He's an all-star. He's used to being the best at what he does. When he suggests he'd need extra preparation to compete against someone, he's acknowledging a threat. He's acknowledging excellence. And the fact that he's willing to acknowledge that for Caitlin Clark speaks volumes about how he perceives her abilities. Paul George took a different approach. He didn't praise immediately. He didn't focus on Caitlin's talent directly. Instead, he zoomed out and provided context that changed the entire conversation. He talked about the women who'd been building the WNBA for years, the ones who played in empty gyms, the ones who fought for visibility, the ones who ground away for years with minimal recognition or compensation. Then Caitlin came along and became the face of the league almost overnight. Paul George made it clear he wasn't blaming Caitlin for that. Her talent earned it. Her presence deserved the attention. But he also humanized something that most discussions were missing: the pain that comes with being overtaken. The hurt of seeing someone new receive instantly what you had to fight for over years. This wasn't Paul George justifying the animosity toward Caitlin. It was Paul George explaining why it existed. It was recognizing that her arrival, however deserved and exciting, created a legitimate psychological challenge for the veterans who'd built the league. That kind of nuanced understanding, that ability to hold 2 truths simultaneously, to recognize Caitlin's excellence while validating the pain of others, that's wisdom. What both Trae and Paul George demonstrated was something important. You could celebrate Caitlin Clark while also understanding the complexity of her impact. You didn't have to choose between recognizing her greatness and acknowledging the wider ecosystem she was disrupting. Both things were true at the same time. Luka Doncic doesn't filter his thoughts for media consumption. When he speaks, what you hear is what he actually thinks. There's no PR polish. There's no calculated messaging. Just direct basketball opinion from one of the most talented players in the world. So when he was asked who his favorite women's basketball player was, everyone was curious what he'd say. Would he play it safe? Would he give a diplomatic answer? Would he hedge? Luka answered one word: Caitlin Clark. No hesitation. No explanation. No context. Just the name, direct, final. And when someone followed up asking if he preferred Paige Bueckers, another elite women's college player, his response was equally blunt: "She's okay. I didn't see her playing in the WNBA." That wasn't disrespectful to Paige. That was a clear distinction. At the professional level, Caitlin is the one doing it. That's what matters to Luka. That's basketball logic. You evaluate players based on where they're actually playing and what they're actually accomplishing at the highest level. Paige is talented, but Caitlin is professional. Caitlin is proven. Caitlin is at that level right now, in real time, against the best competition available. There's a specific kind of respect in that assessment. It's the respect of someone who understands what it takes to transition to professional basketball and actually deliver. Luka made that jump himself. He knows how hard it is. He knows how many talented college players don't make the transition. When he looks at Caitlin Clark and sees someone who's making that transition successfully, who's competing and performing at the professional level, he recognizes something. He sees a real player, but Steph Curry took it further. Steph didn't just compliment Caitlin. He went on record saying he was sick of watching her get attacked. He called on the league to protect her. It was a warning. It was a statement. It was one of the most influential voices in basketball using his platform to say, this has to stop. The targeting has to stop. The disrespect has to stop. And then Steph did something that elevated his statement beyond just being protective. He broke down her game with the kind of technical detail that only comes from genuine analysis. He talked about her release time being nearly identical to his, her confidence, her range, her flair. He called her a performer. He discussed her floor game, her passing, her court vision, the total package. This wasn't someone giving a polite shout out. This was the greatest shooter in basketball history saying he sees legitimate excellence in Caitlin Clark's game. The kind of excellence that reminds him of himself. That's not metaphorical. That's direct. That's saying, you have the skills at the level I have them. When Steph Curry, a player who's fundamentally changed how basketball is played, who's expanded the boundaries of what's possible on a basketball court, looks at another player and says, you have the total package, he's passing a torch. He's saying, you're not just good for where you are, you're good, period. You belong in conversations about the best. Jayson Tatum is one of the biggest names in the NBA. He's a Boston Celtics star. He's been to finals. He's a generational talent. He has influence. He has reach. And he was asked a simple question, who's your favorite WNBA player? It seemed like an easy moment to align himself with the broader conversation happening in basketball, to acknowledge what Caitlin Clark was doing for the sport, to provide some level of support or recognition to the player who dominated conversations about basketball visibility all season long. It was a softball question designed to let him be part of the moment. Jayson Tatum's answer was cold. Aja Wilson, nothing else. No explanation, no warmth, no acknowledgement of what Caitlin Clark had accomplished or what she'd done for the league. Just a name, delivered flatly, and then moving on. Now, Aja Wilson is an exceptional player. She's a multi-time champion. She's dominant. She deserves respect. But this wasn't about Aja's merit. This was about what Tatum chose not to do. He had a platform. He had an opportunity to say what virtually every other major NBA voice had already said. He chose differently. In a moment when Caitlin Clark was carrying the league on her back, when she was absorbing physical punishment, when she was navigating unprecedented scrutiny, one of the biggest names in basketball decided she didn't deserve even a mention. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accidental omission. This was a choice. Whether conscious or not, Tatum's silence was a statement. And that statement was, I'm not participating in this narrative. And that refusal to participate, that deliberate non-acknowledgement, was exactly the kind of subtle disrespect that Caitlin had been experiencing throughout the season. Kevin Durant did something similar but more calculated. When asked about his favorite female athlete, he had a microphone and the full attention of the basketball world. He knew what he was about to say would be reported. He knew it would create a moment. And he still chose Angel Reese. This wasn't an innocent preference. Angel Reese is the player Caitlin has overshadowed. She's the player who's been the target of media criticism. She's the player in the complicated rivalry with Caitlin. And Durant, with all his intelligence about how media works, with all his understanding of messaging and influence, made a deliberate choice to lift up Caitlin's main rival instead of acknowledging Caitlin herself. You could call it neutral. You could say he was just expressing a preference. But in the context of everything else happening around Caitlin Clark, in the context of the league's general treatment of her, in the context of her being targeted and questioned while carrying record viewership, Durant's choice became significant. It became a power move. It became a statement that said, I'm not with this. The interesting thing about both Tatum and Durant is that their silence and their choices created space for alternative narratives. They didn't just opt out, they actively chose someone else. And that choice, especially from players with their level of influence, carried weight. It suggested that not everyone in the NBA was on board with the Caitlin Clark moment. It suggested there was a divide, and that divide itself became part of the story. What's actually happening here, when you step back and look at the full picture of how NBA players responded to Caitlin Clark, is a fundamental divide in how the basketball world perceives her role and her impact. Some players see her as generational talent that validates women's basketball and elevates the entire sport. Others see her as something threatening, something that disrupts the normal order, something that requires a response, either supporting or actively declining to support. But here's what both camps agree on: she matters. Neutrality isn't possible anymore. You either embrace the Caitlin Clark moment or you position yourself against it. And that binary choice, that inability to exist in a gray space, is proof that something significant is happening. The players who spoke openly, Pascal, Obi, Tyrese, LeBron, Tree, Paul, Luka, Steph, they were all recognizing something real. They were seeing a player who'd broken through traditional barriers. They were acknowledging excellence that transcended league boundaries. They were validating not just her talent, but her impact on the sport itself. The players who chose silence or alternatives, Tatum, Durant, they were making a statement too. Whether it was discomfort with the narrative shift or simply a choice to not participate, their silence carried meaning. And in a world where almost every other major voice had spoken positively about Caitlin, their refusal to do so stood out. What Caitlin Clark has actually done is force basketball to make choices. She's created a situation where you can't be neutral. You can't exist in a gray area. When a player is selling out arenas, when she's drawing viewership that rivals NBA games, when she's carrying a league's visibility, when she's handling physical targeting and media criticism with poise, that forces responses. She's doing something no one in the WNBA has done before. She's forcing the league to evolve. She's forcing other players to take stances. She's forcing the basketball community to confront questions about representation, visibility, and what excellence looks like across different levels of the sport. And the most fascinating part is that she's just getting started. She's in her second professional season. She's still learning. She's still developing. The players who spoke positively about her, the ones who saw the excellence and said so, they understand what's coming. The ones who stayed silent, the ones who positioned themselves elsewhere, they understand it too. In a basketball world that often prizes safe answers and diplomatic responses, Caitlin Clark is forcing honesty. She's forcing clarity. And that clarity, whether it's expressed through passionate support or deliberate silence, reveals something real about where basketball is headed and what the sport values. The divide itself proves her impact. The fact that NBA all-stars feel compelled to take sides, to speak up, to make statements, that's not happening for a player who doesn't matter. That's happening for someone who's genuinely changing the landscape. And that change, that force, that impact, that's what legacy is built on. Not noise, not hype, but the undeniable evidence that everything shifted because one player decided to play at a different level.